let's add another time domain effect. And let's see, I had an EQ and I had Space Designer, that reverb selected. I'm going to click here and just say no plugin and show you how, if I really don't want to use the reverb and I don't want to add anything else right now, I could just select nothing. Or if I did happen to have reverb selected back there, and we don't need the window open. If I wanted to change it to something else, which I do, I can click on here, hold a little bit, and go to delay, and I'll choose delay designer, and I can just pick a different effect right away. So I'm dealing with my submarine sound here. I'll bypass this effect so we can hear it. Okay, it's got an EQ on it that makes it kind of pitched. And what we have here is a very robust set of tools, and it allows us to control a lot of things that are difficult to see all at once. So bear with me here. The first thing you're going to want to do in most cases is turn off this grid sync thing. What this does is force all these delay times to be quantized to the tempo of the track, which is by default set to 120 beats per minute in 4/4, and we're not, in most cases, thinking in those terms. If you are, then feel free to re-enable that. And what we see here is 5 different delays. I want to work with one first, so I'm going to click each of these and delete them. I'm just pressing the delete key once they're highlighted, so I'll do with this one. I can drag it back and forth and set the delay time in milliseconds. So I'll set it for about a second and see what this sounds like. So we hear a copy of it, boring enough. That's 1 second later. If we make it even closer. Okay. We can change the level of it by doing this. And let me bring this out so it's easier to hear. There, we've got a quiet copy. Yeah, not all that interesting yet. One thing that is kind of cool, though, is to add feedback on a delay. So let me put the level up kind of normal, and I'll leave this kind of medium. Okay, so we've got about a half a second delay. I'm going to push the feedback button, which enables feedback, and now the delayed output of this processor is going to be fed back into its input. So the delayed copy will get delayed again and delayed again and delayed again. And so we'll be able to get multiple copies, practically an infinite set of copies this way. We have a volume control on the feedback so that we can make them gradually fade out over time. So let's see what it's like with having each copy be about 6 decibels quieter than the copy before it. Okay, if I make this even quieter, then you'll hear them trail off sooner. And just kind of drop off the map. If I make this closer to 0, they just never go away, which can be interesting sometimes. It's rare that you want this to be above 0. Maybe if we did something like this and had it really soft and then amplified things, and we give ourselves some headroom. So you hear our delay fades in gradually, but right before I turned it off, you probably heard that it was going crazy, starting to clip. And so positive values here are generally a bad idea. Okay, but if we do leave feedback on and make our delay time a little bit shorter, you can see how we can start to make kind of a quasi reverb here, or we can bridge the gap between just a plain delay and reverb. Remember, I described a reverb as a mad mess of delays that are just all added together to make an overall smooth sound. So here we've got kind of more of a small cave kind of echo. If I make this even shorter, it's harder to hear the distinct copies. Now if I increase the feedback, I'm kind of increasing what might be the reverb tail on this. And you hear it's still a lumpy reverb, right? if we make this really, really short, basically less than 50, it starts to get pitched, but we need a really high feedback for to be able to hear it. That's an effect called a comb filter, because basically it's canceling out all the spectra of a sound except the ones that fit into a harmonic series. So we get this shape that looks like the tines of a comb. Okay, so let's turn feedback off a little bit now and talk about some of the other things that we can do here. Because if I had made this a stereo effect, remember when I picked this, I picked mono so that I can pan the whole thing. But if I wanted to have this be a significant compositional element, I could select this as a stereo effect and use this slider to control a pan. Transposition. Check this out. I can have my delayed copy go higher or lower by semitones, which are adjacent notes on the piano, half steps. There's 12 in an octave. So let me make my delayed copy be a perfect fourth higher. Ooh. And what happens if I add my feedback on this? Ooh. So the delayed copies are getting delayed and delayed again, but they're also transposed copies, and they're getting transposed and transposed again. So what happens if I do my quasi-reverb trick? Ooh. Okay, and if I use a smaller step, it goes up in pitch at a slower rate. Or if I'm feeling sad, oh, okay. That can be pretty cool. This could be a great way to build some pitch motives if we only were to have multiple delays in here. We can also affect a filter. See, we've got high pass and low pass filters on here. So I can actually drag the bottom of this and say, let's only capture from this range up. Or I could drag the top and say, let's only capture from this range down. Or since I did both, I'm only capturing the middle. Let's listen just to something with a really low band that we're emphasizing. Everything else is being cut out with each repetition. See, we've still got feedback enabled. And you know what? This is really easier to hear if I bypass my EQ for right now. So I'm letting my unprocessed sound come into the delay designer. It's a wider spectrum. Here, every copy gets darker. Or I can just drag this whole thing up. And now it gets brighter. I want it to be more extreme. And what happens if I do this now? I can get kind of a quasi-reverb. And I want more delay, or more feedback here. See, it gets a cool effect that way. We could also make it zoom in on a certain frequency here, as opposed to something different. Okay, and if I were to okay, in this case, we still gently want to add numbers that are higher than 0. But the filters are also making the sound quieter, so we're a little bit safer going a little bit past that 0 mark here. But we get a kind of reverb that gradually lands on this pitch, which is kind of cool. Okay, we can also control the resonance of it. So let me leave this back here. And increase the resonance of this filter. Whoa, 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 whoa. Okay, back to negative numbers. Hey, it was about to blow up on us. So the more we add resonance here, the more the filter's going to sing along, keep ringing. And so that's a volume adding feature, and so we're going to want to back off on the feedback, but we can get some cool effects that way. Okay, so we can not only control the level Pan if we added it as a stereo effect, but also the transposition and high pass and low pass filters and the resonance of those filters. Also, all those things are described numerically down here if we want to have more precise control over those things. Ooh, what's it like if I do this? See, my low pass filter is down here, my high pass filter is up here. Let's just experiment. So it's getting bassier and brighter. Let's make this more gentle and bring our delay time shorter. Okay, that's a neat effect too. So, okay. Let me bring all these back to something kind of normal. Resonance, no thank you for now. Transposition, you're back at 0 level. And let's even disable feedback for right now. Okay, so I've got this really tight delay. And let me, just for interest, put my EQ back on. I'm just unbypassing it. Okay. Let me bring this out. Okay. Now I've got a plain old delay again. I can click in here and add a second delay. Now this isn't feedback. We're just, see, our feedback is off. We're just adding a second delay, and so I can kind of make a rhythmic pattern here if I want to. We'll take a break while you dance to that. And let's pretend that's. Let's tweak that a little bit and leave that going a little bit. Maybe I want to de-emphasize this one a little bit. And maybe emphasize this one a little bit more. And let's add one more. Yeah. Okay. Now we can change the transposition of each of these. See, this one's a little bit higher. So now we can get kind of a pitch thing with it. We can also change the cutoff of each thing. And the resonance of each of these. Yeah, you know what? Let's disable this filter again. Okay, that's how we could make good use of our filter here. Let's go back to this because it's more pitched. Okay, and what happens if we add feedback in here? That this rhythm and pitch motive that we have gets copied. Maybe if we leave this up. I turn my feedback off and that goes away. We'll be able to automate this stuff later, pretty soon, so you can get some ideas here. But this could be a great way to create some rhythmic motives. Maybe even now, since we've got different pitches, we'll be able to differentiate these more, even though it's kind of a soupy sound. And we could do something like this. with feedback off. Okay, so with this in mind, let's undo this little region I selected here and listen to some more of this. So it's going to do the same rhythm effect on everything, and if it's sustained, it'll merge that into a chord. So we can kind of take these pitch motives and instantly turn them into harmonies just by running them over sustained sounds. We got kind of a swarm of these things. Ooh. Okay, one more thing. Let's try adding some feedback in here. And going back to, we'll start it right here. And let's move these sounds a little closer together, just to save some time. Oops. Command Z is a good one for undoing. And it's also under the edit menus. So we're taking these what were fairly simple gestures, just with interesting timbres, but they have simple shape, getting louder, and now we're able to add a lot more detail to it, some pitch control to it, at least in terms of intervals. Okay. And it does seem like we may have clipped a little bit in there, so we want to do some things to watch our levels and make sure we're not clipping. Okay, we'll take a break and get to some more effects later.